maybe I'll just rush through the first bit of the presentation. So basically, I'm going to be working with Henry Count. Oh, Mike, yes. All right, yeah. To offer you one of the workshop sessions, which is on a data visualization tool called raw graphs. So we came here originally, and then Anelda also slotted us into various presentations, it was somehow I missed that email, so she kind of just like quickly had to come up with a presentation. So of course what I did was asked ChatGPT. So I think that also says something about the era that we are in. So I don't know if the presentation's coming up, but just I kind of know what I'm going to say. So I just thought I'd talk a little bit about me. So to start off with, so basically I actually started studying, I was kind of a little bit of a geek growing up, so I started studying electronic engineering at the University of Pretoria. As you can see from my grey hair, that was a very long time ago. The university, it was like really kind of the crazy 80s, apartheid was still in full swing. I got involved in some student politics and then realized my faculty was making missiles, so I had a bit of an existential crisis. I mean, the theme that Anelda gave me for this talk is why are we here? So I kind of had a why are we here kind of moment. But I kind of like just finished a maths degree at that point and then went to work for an NGO in Cape Town called the Community Education Computer Science Society. KEX we called it, and we used to joke, let's talk about KEX, baby. That was a song at the time. Called Let's Talk About Sex, baby. You had to be there. Basically, this organization, it was in Athlone, on top of the Wembley Bakery in Belgravia Road. For those of you who know Cape Town, I had to take the taxi there every morning. Athlone, Gatesville, Heideveld was my taxi. All right, anyway, so this is me back in the day working in Athlone. With this organization. So I learned a lot about how one teaches technology from this organization, because they were like really active in the community, very involved with political organizations, and also with schools, particularly in the kind of Manenberg area of Cape Town, which is quite a difficult area, a lot of gangs, etc. And they were kind of like saying, you know, people easily get intimidated by technology because technology is linked to power. And, you know, part of what we need to do if we want to empower communities is we need to break that down. We need to stop, you know, because technology often, you know, people use it kind of like sort of this technology ego politics, you know, where they ramble a lot of big tech words to intimidate you, to shut you down, so that you don't feel empowered, that you don't feel like you can use these tools. So we developed quite a few methods back in the day at KEX. We worked with other organizations at UWC, ERP, something like that. And, you know, we said, let's work in ways where we can break that down. So kind of I've come a long way since KEX. I've worked as a filmmaker, and then I've kind of become a journalism and media studies academic. But I've kind of come full circle in a way in that I'm now also again teaching tech skills. I'm very involved with a project which focuses particularly on digital humanities skills for media studies researchers at Rhodes University. It's called DigiMethods Africa, and we have worked really well with DH Ignite, who kind of brought us on board, gave us like initial skills in terms of programming. They gave us, taught us how to use Slack, which was a fantastic support. And basically we used the same principles at this event that I learned at KEX, which that we need to learn this stuff collaboratively. We need to resist techno-shaming and techno-superiority, and we need to be brave enough to ask fundamental questions without thinking that they are stupid questions. We've got to have the courage to try and fail. You know, these tech bros working in their garages, they have the courage not to, you know, feel embarrassed by getting something wrong. And we have to adapt that Black consciousness slogan, each one teach one, where if you get something right, you share that skill with someone else. So that's kind of like basically sort of my background where I'm from. But just to get back to asking ChatGPT about the talk. So, you know, the theme of the talk is kind of why are we here? So I asked ChatGPT, can you give me some quotes by eminent scholars in the fields of humanities and social sciences who consider why are we here? So ChatGPT said, as you said, always very polite, certainly. So here are a few of the quotes that ChatGPT came up with. I had to say, ChatGPT, not just old white men, you know, give me some women, give me some African scholars. So it took a little while, but that's what prompt engineering is all about. You've got to learn how to prompt. So ChatGPT gave me Kierkegaard. She gave me Judith Butler. I do feel ChatGPT is a woman. And then she also gave me Chinua Achebe. So anyway, so let's just go revisit those quotes. So in terms of why are we here, ChatGPT suggested the father of existential philosophy, really much, why are we here? Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forward. So that made me think a little bit in terms of the kind of theories we have about the digital and why the digital is important and how we as humanities scholars have approached the digital. So basically, you know, 20 years ago, which is why when I kind of started more or less in this field, it was really very much focused on either techno utopia, where technology is going to save the world, you know, revolutions are going to be done through Twitter, or very much this kind of big brother approach that, you know, we need to move away from this kind of stuff. You know, we have the Frankfurt School, you know, all this consumerist kind of like stuff. And we used to think of the kind of like digital space very much like kind of two-way communication, or kind of, I guess, more multi, you know, you can talk back, or, you know, you can broadcast yourself. Great. So that was kind of one way of thinking, and it was kind of a bit limiting. So, you know, the next person I turned to, that ChatGPT gave me, was Judith Butler, who reminded us what the humanities is about. So she says, the humanities remind us where we have been and help us envision where we are going. They offer tools for resistance, for critical thinking, and for imagining the world otherwise. So in the last particularly in the last 10 years, there's been a lot of, you know, conceptual tools that have been offered for us to think about the digital. And those are kind of focused on the digital as the in-between. So looking at the idea of network power, where, you know, the network is only as powerful as how many people are on it. Network logics, that we don't just all just broadcast each other. You know, the people who have bigger networks have got more power. People who are more sort of popular and influencing, or who actually own the platforms, they are the ones with power. And we've looked in terms of mediatization, how, you know, all of our cultural practices have become infused with the digital, whether it's, you know, grieving is now online, flirting is now, you know, on an app, and there the idea of platform power, where we need to examine more critically, you know, these, you know, the corporations who actually own these platforms where our lives are happening, and the power they have to shape our lives through algorithms. So those are the conceptual tools that we've seen. But one of the theorists that I found really useful, Daniel Miller, who's an anthropologist who's published a book together with Heather Horst, they talk about the digital, that we've got to think of the digital in the same way as, you know, if you think of a world before money, when there was money, you could create equivalences. You could swap things easily. For a cow, you could trade for maybe a woven cloth or something like that. And it created new possibilities of equivalences, etc. And, you know, in terms of the digital, what's happened now, the same has happened with information that has happened with goods. They have become infinitely scalable, where you can kind of compare, you know, what used to be apples and oranges, now they're the same kind of digital stuff. So what's happened in recent years is we've seen the big data revolution, whether it's an agricultural field that's been scanned, or your smartphone scanning all this data every day, you know, your heart rate, etc. Smart cities where transport systems, you know, produce data, you know, where, you know, you have situations where you have, for example, washing machines who are smart and check when the electricity grid is going to have the most power available. Everything is becoming data. You know, shops, you know, your smart shopper card, you know, is creating flows where they know, you know, there'll be Easter eggs from February where people will be buying them because they sell out, etc. So you have a whole new society where everything works differently. All of this data is accumulated about you, and I know people speak about zettabytes, etc. these days, huge amounts of data. That's what's happening in the commercial world. That's what's happening, you know, in on these platforms. And it's not just data where people are counting things, people are analyzing your texts. I think we've all had that experience where you talk about something and it seems like your phone has listened to you because now you get an advert for their exact same thing. That's the analysis of unstructured data, like speech, like writing, like text, recorded videos, etc. And what that has produced is that we can have, you know, before we used to talk in the humanities very much about quantitative and qualitative research as two very different things. But now what's happened with these enormous, you know, like fields of data coming together, and you can still, you know, analyze in there those texts, those videos, is you have the rise of the qualitative method. So this is an Italian theorist, Venturini, who's collaborated with Latour, who says the social sciences have never had methods to reconnect micro and macro and show how global phenomena are built by the assemblage of local interactions. Digital technology promises to revolutionize this situation, providing the social sciences the possibility of following each thread of interaction and showing how social life is woven together by their assemblage. So really that's the power of these digital methods, is they can, you know, bring these scales together, you know, the enormous big picture, while at the same time you can go in and see the detail. What did that person tweet, for example? So for us as humanities researchers, we need to think, how are we going to adapt our research to take advantage of the availability of this data that's like everywhere? I mean, Pick n Pay knows exactly how much yogurt you've bought since forever, and, you know, whether you've bought cigarettes or not. So, you know, this data is out there. How can our research take advantage of the scalability of data, the broad global sweeps and the fine detail? We can tell, you know, something about what's happening, you know, in a village and plot that out to what's happening in terms of the world. But at the same time, you know, this data is not a public good. This data, you know, the smart shopper data, Pick n Pay's got that, you know, the Facebook data, Meta's got that. What does it mean when most of the data belongs to private corporations? And I think that's a really important issue for us as academics to discuss. And I hope we're going to have the space at this event to also just talk about that. Because, you know, the data out there, what happens is a lot of these people who deal with data, they just treat it like, you know, it's an economic thing, or it's, you know, a technical thing. So, for example, on Facebook, if there's disinformation, you know, a lot of disinformation, for example, around violence, threats of violence coming out, they just treat it, okay, let's just tell the algorithm not to show this stuff. We need to know, as humanities researchers and just as citizens, as journalists particularly also, you know, that, you know, how big a threat is this to our democracy? How many people are talking about this kind of stuff? we really need access to data. So that's something I hope we're gonna talk. In the EU, for example, researchers have demanded that part of, for these platforms to operate in Europe, they have to make data available to researchers. So I hope we can stand together to get that demand through the AU as well. But to get to the last person that Chinua Achebe recommended to me in terms of why are we here, Chinua Achebe, the Nigerian writer, who said the world is like a mask dancing. If you want to see it well, you do not stand in one place. So there's a sense that you need to jump around. And that's really what, in terms of the digital method, about the quali-quanti approach, you need to jump back to see the big picture, then jump in to see the fine detail. So what these digital methods allow us to do is to bring this overview stuff, the archive, the map, the timeline, the visualization of masses of data, and bring that into the same equation as looking at photographs, at sounds, at actuality like we see on the film, interviews, the detailed words, texts, etc., the stories and the data points, and bring those in conversation so we create new ways of kind of scaling our research. So, one of the methods that you can use is you can visualize networks. So this is like a Twitter graph where basically the people who talk to each other come together in little clusters. And you can see, for example, the Indian groupings where people talk about COVID with each other. So this is from the COVID era. So you through these digital methods, you can see how the whole world, who's in little cliques with each other. You can also scale up your research and analyze thousands of articles at the same time. So for us in media studies, we used to do content analysis by hand with little cards and highlighters. This is amazing because now you can you use a tool like Atlas TI or various other text scraping tools, and you can actually see which words which words dominate in what kind of text. You can compare different kinds of text, like two different kinds of newspapers. So that's a fantastic thing you can do now with these tools. You can also turn your research into film, which is what I've done. Unfortunately, this doesn't play as a trailer. I was going to play some of it, but maybe it's just as good since I'm running out of time. But I've created a film which visualizes the history of the Eastern Cape, the history of the black intellectuals that came out of the mission schools. So through film, you can give people that texture of what it is like to be there, the landscape, the places where people were. We can also tell stories through maps, and this is actually a tool that I've been using called Easy Travel, which is used by a lot of museums around the world, where you can actually plot the importance of various sites. So if you're an anthropologist, for example, you can show various places and how they relate to each other and create an audio tour where you include the interviews with people. The same app also allows you to create an archive of objects. And as you can see here, they use it in museums all over the world. So that's the Easy Travel app. I'm actually organizing a course for the museums of Makhanda in this app, and I can actually, if you're interested, I can kind of share some of that with you. Also, in terms of what we can do with these digital methods is we can visualize data because we as human beings, especially I think us as humanities scholars, these lists of numbers are really intimidating. So if you can create a picture, you can start seeing this, really much better. And see how the pink stream here has always dominated. I think that's New York, has always been the biggest city. But some cities changed in their position. So this is made with raw graphs, which is the tool that Henry Count and I are going to be showing you, I think, tomorrow. So those of you interested in visualizing big sort of amounts of numbers or hierarchies, etc., this is a great tool. Another method, digital methods don't necessarily have to be quantitative or involve huge amounts of text. You can also do sort of, I guess it's an ethnographic method. So, in anthropology, they have these walking methods where you walk through a space. So there are also digital walking methods where you walk through an app and you kind of have this experience. How do I start to get on the app? Pet rescue, I think this is the kids' game. And then what are you kind of led to do next? And then how is this, and you analyze your own experience of a particular app. And I'm actually using this method to analyze a particular app used by less connected South Africans called Share It. I don't know how many of you use it, how many of you have actually watched those little videos that Share It sends you on a daily basis. If you have, I'd love to interview you. And then we've also, what has happened, unfortunately this video doesn't play, but maybe we can watch it at a later stage. This is a project that Stellenbosch University has created with the archive on slavery, where they've invited fine art students to create responses to this archive. So again, you have the conversation between the archive of all these kind of births and death registrations, and something more qualitative, the experience of the artists. What we also need to do is that we need to document our own digital methods. So I've been collaborating with some other scholars, and we've come up with a method of how we interact, how we kind of study how people use their mobile phones. We've called it the mobile diary method, the Izolo mobile diary method, which Izolo is obviously the isiXhosa word for yesterday. And what we've done is we've asked people to tell us exactly what they did the day before, even the most mundane, everyday tasks. Like, I fed the chickens, and or did you use your phone? No, but I used the torch on my phone when I went to feed the pig at night. All those little details allow us to kind of get a much finer understanding of how these digital devices fit into people's lives. And of course, we also have to interrogate AI from an African standpoint. So we need to look at, what are the images that come up when you ask. So I asked ChatGPT it was one of these DALL-E, I think, to give me an image of what a 19th century African intellectual looked like. And it was a very strange image. This person was smoking a hookah pipe. It was really weird. So I think we need to write up those responses and, look at the racism that's involved in a lot of these AI models, where they kind of like consider that basically what happens in the US is normal. Well, we know that, in the majority world, which is our experience, what people call the global south, but, it's not a half-half situation. We are probably like 70% of the world. That's not a normal situation. So really, I just want to end off by, inviting you also to think about how you can use data, but also to join the struggle for data access, because I think that's really what we also need to unite as digital humanities scholars. I've joined a group which I can also share with you at some point, called the African Access to Information. So the Association of African Access to Information Group, Professor Guy Burger, who was based at our university, has started that, and we're getting together journalists as well as academics to insist on, that we need to be able to see what's happening in our societies. We can't just have all of this data behind walled fences and the property of private multinational corporations. So thank you very much for it.